Every few decades, the world quietly resets itself. A new generation of wealth is created, and the people who understand that transition before it happens change their lives forever. But to everyone else, it looks impossible, unbelievable, even until it happens, and by then it's already too late. This is the story of every financial revolution, and it's happening again right now. Beneath the surface of everyday life, while most people scroll and speculate, a silent transformation is rewriting the rules of money value and ownership. And if you've been watching closely, you already know the asset sitting at the heart of that transformation, XRP. This isn't about hype, it's about history, it's about understanding the exact moment when a technological shift collides with necessity and changes everything, because that's where the life-changing opportunities always emerge. They never come from luck, they come from awareness, the awareness to see before the world does so. When people talk about owning 2,200 XRP, it's not about a magic number. It's about understanding the magnitude of the system being built around it, because if even a fraction of what's unfolding becomes reality, the people who paid attention early will experience something the rest of the world will call luck. But it won't be luck. It will be literacy and timing, the two things that have always built wealth. Let's start with the simple truth. We are witnessing the largest shift in global finance in over a century. The entire system that moves value across borders, from banks to central banks, from corporations to individuals, is being rebuilt. And blockchain is the foundation for that rebuild. And within that ecosystem, XRP serves a very specific role. It's not just another cryptocurrency. It's a bridge asset, the digital glue that connects the fragmented world of money into a single seamless network of exchange today. That network is inefficient and slow, but tomorrow it will move instantly. That's not a theory. It's a goal being pursued by the largest institutions in the world, and XRP is positioned to make that happen. That's why so many people underestimate it, because it's not built for retail hype. It's built for institutional utility, for the parts of the system that don't make headlines, but control trillions behind the scenes. And when those systems adopt blockchain rails, the assets that make those systems function become invaluable. So when we talk about numbers like 2,200 XRP, we're really talking about access, the ability to participate in a system that's still invisible to most of the world, but once visible will redefine what wealth even means. Think about the last 2 decades, the rise of the internet, the birth of smartphones, the explosion of social media. Each one created a new class of people who understood the shift. Before the rest, they didn't have more resources, they had more vision. They saw where the world was heading and acted early. Now we're watching the same pattern play out with money itself. But this time it's not about content or convenience, it's about control. Control over how value moves and who benefits from that movement. Blockchain is redistributing that control from centralized institutions to decentralized networks. And XRP stands at the intersection of both. It's not anti-system, it's the bridge that upgrades the system. It's built for efficiency, not rebellion. And that's exactly why it will last, because the old system doesn't need to be destroyed, it needs to evolve. And XRP offers that evolution silently, efficiently, inevitably. But here's the deeper truth. Most people will never see it until it's too late, because that's how every revolution works when something is truly transformative. It doesn't look extraordinary. At first it looks boring, misunderstood, even mocked, until suddenly it becomes the standard. And by the time everyone wants in, the door is already closed. That's where we are today with XRP. And that's why understanding its purpose is so critical, because when the shift happens, it won't send an email announcing itself. It will happen quietly all at once. Like every other technological awakening that changed the world, the financial world moves slowly until it doesn't. And those who prepared before that moment are the ones who benefit after it. The reason people talk about numbers like 2,200 XRP is because they represent that window of preparation, that period of time, where it's still possible to learn, understand, and position before it becomes mainstream, not because of a guaranteed outcome, but because of possibility. Possibility is what drives innovation. It's what built every invention, every company, every breakthrough in history. But most people fear it because it's uncertain. Yet every person who ever built something meaningful faced that same uncertainty and acted anyway. That's what separates those who dream from those who achieve, because clarity doesn't come before action, it comes after it. And right now, the clarity forming around digital assets is stronger than ever. Major banks, central banks, and global regulators are no longer ignoring blockchain. They're integrating it slowly, deliberately, but certainly because they know it's the only way to modernize a system that's no longer efficient. The world doesn't need another speculative asset. It needs a tool that works, and XRP works. It has proven itself in real-world transactions across continents, saving time and money for institutions who move billions daily. It's already doing what others are still promising to do. And as adoption grows, so will necessity. And necessity always redefines value. This is the same story that played out with oil in the Industrial Revolution, electricity in the 20th century, and the internet in the 21st when something becomes necessary. Its value rebalances automatically. And that's why so many believe XRP's potential is extraordinary, not because of hype, but because of mechanics. Because when you move the foundation of the world's financial plumbing onto new rails, the liquidity asset that powers it can't stay undervalued forever. It must adjust to fit the volume. It supports that's logic, not speculation. But here's what really matters. It's not about watching charts or chasing predictions. It's about understanding systems. Once you understand how the world's payment system works, you see why XRP exists. It's a bridge, not a bet. And that bridge is being built right now, in partnerships with institutions across Asia, the Middle East, and Europe, connecting markets that used to take days to move money between. Now they do it in seconds using blockchain settlement. That's progress. That's the quiet revolution that's happening beneath the noise. And when the noise fades, the truth will stand. This isn't about overnight success, it's about long-term alignment, aligning your understanding with where the world is heading, and the world is heading toward digitization at every level. Digital identity, digital currency, digital infrastructure, everything that used to be paper and manual is becoming code and automation. Money is simply the final frontier, and XRP is one of the first technologies to solve that frontier in a scalable way. That's why the people who study it deeply see beyond the price. They see the architecture being built around it. They see Ripple forming partnerships with central banks and global institutions. They see the corridors opening for real use cases. They see governments testing digital currencies and needing bridges between them. And they see how XRP fits that role perfectly. It's not about what it is now. It's about what it's becoming, because history always rewards what works and ignores what doesn't. XRP works, and the world is slowly catching up to that reality. But the biggest transformations don't wait for everyone to agree. They move forward regardless. And when they do, the people who understood them early aren't surprised they're prepared. That's why education is everything right now. Not advice, not speculation, but awareness, that the old system can't survive without change, awareness, that efficiency always wins awareness, that the most valuable skill today isn't trading. It's understanding, because understanding lets you see through the fog of noise and recognize the signal of truth. The truth that blockchain isn't going away. The truth that regulation isn't a threat, it's validation. The truth that value is migrating from speculation to function. And XRP stands at the intersection of that migration. Let's take a step deeper, because this idea of becoming a millionaire isn't about chasing a number. It's about understanding value before the crowd does value has always been perception, until perception becomes necessity. Think about it. When the world realized oil-powered industry fortunes were made, when the world realized data-powered decisions, new empires were built. And now as the world realizes that liquidity powers the digital economy, new wealth will be created again, not through speculation, but through participation. Participation in the systems that make the world function. And XRP isn't an outsider in that story. It's the connector, the enabler, the technology, quietly solving problems no one else can fix. And when something solves real problems, adoption is inevitable. The real question isn't if it happens, it's when, and when it does. Those who saw early will already be positioned mentally and informationally to benefit from the change. Not because they predicted it, but because they understood it. Understanding is the greatest advantage anyone can have in times like these, because the world is entering an age where technology moves faster than comprehension, and only those who stay curious keep up. That's what XRP represents, a test of awareness. The awareness to see money not as a static object, but as a moving system. And those who understand that movement can navigate the shift, while others wait for confirmation. The irony is, by the time confirmation arrives, opportunity is gone. That's why being early matters not for profit, but for preparation. Because preparation is what creates possibility. And possibility is what creates freedom. This entire journey isn't about charts, it's about choices. The choice to learn, when others ignore the choice to see potential. When others see confusion, and the choice to think long-term when others think next week. That's the mindset that built every success story you've ever heard. Because wealth doesn't start with money, it starts with awareness. Owning 2,200 XRP is symbolic of that awareness. It represents being early to something the world doesn't yet understand. And while everyone debates what could go wrong, the few who study what could go right are the ones who end up being called lucky later, because they were willing to see before the crowd believed. But this is where patience comes in, because conviction without patience is chaos. The world rewards those who stay calm through uncertainty, because uncertainty is the soil where opportunity grows. Every technological revolution faced resistance before acceptance. It's human nature to doubt what's new, but progress never waits for permission. It moves forward regardless until suddenly it's everywhere. The same will happen. Here, we're already seeing the groundwork, Ripple's legal clarity expanding, the legitimacy of digital assets, banks and governments discussing interoperability solutions, payment corridors, opening for instant settlement. These are the signs of foundation being laid beneath the noise. And when the foundation is complete, the structure rises fast. That's when the rest of the world wakes up and calls it overnight success. But those who were aware long before will know. It was years in the making, and they'll remember the moments when it felt uncertain, the headlines, the fear, the doubt, and they'll realize that those moments were the tests that separated believers from bystanders, because belief isn't blind, it's informed. Belief is what holds you steady when logic tells you the fundamentals are strong, even when sentiment is weak. And right now, the fundamentals of this transformation are undeniable. Every major financial entity on the planet is studying or integrating blockchain technology, not because it's trendy, but because it's necessary. And XRP fits that necessity perfectly. It offers speed, efficiency, and scalability for the real world. And when the real world finally flips the switch, it won't be about hype, it'll be about infrastructure, the systems that quietly carry value across nations every second of every day. And when XRP is part of that flow, the world will understand what believers saw from the beginning, that this wasn't a gamble, it was progress, waiting to be recognized, because true innovation always looks small before it looks obvious. Think about the internet before social media, or artificial intelligence before smartphones. At first, it felt distant, complicated, irrelevant, and then one day, it became everything. That's the trajectory XRP is on right now. It's the quiet before the recognition, the buildup before the surge. And recognition always comes suddenly, slowly, then all at once. It's the same pattern we've seen through every era of technological growth. And it always rewards those who studied rather than speculated, the ones who cared to understand rather than argue. Because understanding is what allows you to hold steady when volatility strikes. Volatility doesn't destroy value. It reveals conviction. The people who panic are the ones who never understood what they owned in the first place. But when you know why something matters, you don't get shaken. You stay patient, and patience in moments like these is priceless. Because when the system rebalances, it doesn't reward speed, it rewards endurance. That's why every story of transformation feels the same. In hindsight, it starts with disbelief, grows through resistance, and ends with acceptance and fortune. The financial system is evolving right now, not tomorrow, not next year, right now. And those who learn from it today will be the ones shaping it tomorrow. XRP isn't a get-rich-quick story, it's a get-ready story. It's the evolution of money in motion. A tool designed for the future that's already arriving faster than anyone realizes. And the number 2,200 is just a symbol of that realization, a reminder that sometimes the smallest steps toward awareness lead to the biggest changes in life, because it's never about how much you have, it's about what you understand. And what you understand determines how you act when history presents its next opportunity. Owning XRP today isn't about speculation. It's about participation in the next era of finance. It's about being part of the transition that will define how value moves for generations. It's about recognizing that the system isn't collapsing. It's upgrading, and upgrades always look messy before they look miraculous. So while most people focus on noise, focus on knowledge, because knowledge is what transforms uncertainty into opportunity. Every chart will fluctuate, every opinion will fade, but knowledge will remain, and knowledge is what leads to freedom. That's the real meaning behind this conversation. Freedom from fear, freedom from dependency, freedom to make choices based on awareness, not emotion, because when you understand what's happening in the world of finance, you no longer react. You respond calmly, confidently, and strategically. That's what real empowerment looks like, and that's what this channel stands for. Crypto Equation isn't about hype, it's about clarity, about connecting the dots before the world does, about turning complexity into comprehension. Because comprehension is the foundation of transformation, and transformation is exactly what we're living through right now. The next 5 years will rewrite the rules of money, and those who spent this period learning will be the ones everyone looks to for answers later. This is that moment, the calm before the clarity, the phase where awareness feels lonely, but one day it will feel legendary when the system flips and the world finally understands what was being built all along. The people who stayed curious will be ready, because they didn't chase, they studied, and that made all the difference. This isn't financial advice, this is foresight. And foresight is the bridge between where you are and where the world is going. XRP represents that bridge, and those who understand it early will cross long before the crowd even realizes there's another side. This is Crypto Equation, reminding you that history rewards the informed and that the future doesn't wait. It unfolds for those who see it coming first. Surprised they're prepared. That's why education is everything right now. Not advice, not speculation, but awareness that the old system can't survive without change. Awareness that efficiency always wins awareness. That the most valuable skill today isn't trading, it's understanding. Because understanding lets you see through the fog of noise and recognize the signal of truth. The truth that blockchain isn't going away. The truth that regulation isn't a threat, it's validation. The truth that value is migrating from speculation to function, and XRP stands at the intersection of that migration.